Let's talk about how true crime is everywhere now. It is online, it is in podcasts, it is in television shows, it is in true crime documentaries, it is everywhere, right? And a lot of times, a lot of things are sensationalized because people want to go into rage bait, rage culture. They also have this idea that the more sensational the case is, the greater awareness that it needs, and they need to sensationalize it and make it gory and make it give all details that they can give to increase viewership. However, as an attorney and an almost 18-year criminal defense attorney, I strongly disagree with this. I have my own true crime channel. It's called Grace and Gavel, where truth meets compassion. I am very concerned about this sensationalism because honestly, we have to think about the people who have lost their lives. We also have to think about the people who are the victims themselves, who are continuing to live day to day knowing that they will never see their loved one again. We do not need to have them stumble upon this gory stuff and traumatize the family who's likely already traumatized. And I think it's extremely important to remember that we're all human and we need to remember our humanity, and we need to treat people as if we would want to be treated, right? We need to be kind. We need to be compassionate. We don't need to get out really crazy details just to overdo everyone else who's talking about gory details. I think that that shows a lack of decency. I think it shows a lack of kind of decorum as far as how we should act as people instead of being responsible and taking responsibility for our own actions rather than trying to make a dollar or monetize or any number of things at the hands of the victims of crime. And so let's talk about the psychology of public certainty. There is something called confirmation bias where people instinctively seek out information that is going to confirm their original idea so that they do not have to go against what they thought, what they've believed, what they've known. Additionally, there's a lot of online pile-ons where people continue to bring cases up. They continue to bully people on media that don't agree with them. And there's also this idea of parasocial confidence, which is essentially where people kind of band together and bully other people to try to get them to do what they want them to do. And so they have this whole confidence idea that they know more than everyone else, including the investigators, including other people who may have a lot more experience than they do. And so let's talk about how trauma affects behavior. Oftentimes, trauma increases the ability or accept the propensity to actually feel panic. So oftentimes there's panic attacks, there's nightmares, there is, trouble with eating at times. Additionally, a lot of things that happen during trauma include like inconsistent memory. For instance, in an example of a sexual assault, you may not remember everything in a generalized timeline because the brain fragments in moments of stress. And a lot of us, myself included, when I'm extremely stressed out, I tend to forget my keys. I forget to lose my I tend to lose my keys, lose my phone, lose everything because I just can't focus. My brain moves at a quicker speed during that time for some reason. And oftentimes memory is going to be inconsistent, which can be extremely difficult, especially if a trial phase happens, because you're going to be cross-examined on certain things and you may not recall. It's completely okay to say, I don't recall that. I don't recall that. And then another side effect is potentially emotional shutdown because you're so numb and you're so overworked and overwhelmed with what's happened to you that you literally cannot focus on anything else. And why investigators require evidence. There's the burden of proof, as we all know, to be convicted of a criminal case. It's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not proof beyond all doubt. It's proof beyond reasonable doubt, right? Reasonable doubt that would affect the case. And oftentimes, reasonable doubt is what leads to a not guilty verdict. For instance, if they have a lot of evidence, the jurors may determine that there is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. But that should not be made based on a gut feeling. That should not be made based on hearsay. That should not be made by inadmissible evidence coming in. And of course, that is why the judge is usually the trier of fact with the jury. They get jury instructions. They get all of these things. As an almost 18-year criminal defense attorney, I have actually done criminal trials. And they have a strict set of rules so that it's better that one guilty man go free than an innocent man spend the rest of his life in prison for a crime he did not commit. And so as an attorney, I definitely believe that. I think that that's extremely important. However, is our system perfect? Absolutely not. But do we do our best? We do our best that we can, but there are still things that could be further improved. And the Innocence Project picks up on some of that. The DNA testing has picked up on that. Various other aspects of the law has picked up on that. And let's talk about the impact on families. Oftentimes families who've lost their loved ones do relive the trauma. And there's a lot of misinformation online. I mentioned the Casey Anthony case in one of my other podcasts recently, as well as a loss of dignity. And I want to say to you that I lived in Orlando when Jennifer Kesse disappeared, and it really shook me. It was very, very sad. I'm still hoping and praying that Joyce and Drew Kesse are able to bring their daughter home and find out who did this horrific thing to her. And her case still sticks with me. I am following every day, hoping that they end up finding out who committed her murder. And I'm also hoping that the person who was seen in the film footage that, obstructed his face with a fence post, that hopefully he can be brought to justice. Maybe some advances in technology can make that possible. And so let's talk about what responsible coverage looks like. Responsible coverage isn't throwing everything at the wall and trying to sensationalize and try to make drama out of an already hectic situation, right? You need to have empathy if you're going to cover these cases. You need to have some restraint. You need to make sure that you're being accurate, and you need to be avoiding exploitation of not only the victim who's deceased and or harmed in some way, but also the survivors of that person. True crime should seek understanding and justice, not just attention. And so I just want to say, if you got some value in this, please feel free to subscribe to Grace and Gavel, where truth meets compassion. Again, my name is Buffy. I'm an almost 18-year criminal defense attorney. And I provide true crime analysis without all the sensationalism. I have actually had a couple of victims' family members, and other people say thank you for the way that I've covered things, because I don't engage in sensationalism. I do try to offer empathy, but I also explain legal concepts in ways that a lot of people can kind of understand and navigate, and realize that, criminal law can be very interesting, but it can also be very sad. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Hopefully you'll come back and see me again soon. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.